All right, let's dive right in. Content writing and publishing, module number 1, we are starting off with brand and voice. This is, of course, building on a lot of the purpose and value statements that we looked at in course number 1, but rubber meets the road. We're writing out some seriously impactful bio statements, elevator pitches, and beyond this time around. So what are we going to learn? Well, that creation of killer content, just the kind of stuff that we see online, and not just social media, but blogs and e-newsletters and podcasts and YouTube descriptions and all of the pieces of content, short or long, that lead us in or pull us in and then leave us wanting more. That compelling piece versus overwhelm and technical jargon and not what I asked for. We're talking about exactly the kind of content reaching the right people at the right time with the right educational, insightful, entertaining information that they're looking for. So how do we speak to them and compel them in and do that consistently? The about statement, so important. This real estate that's so often overlooked, whether it's just a bio in our Instagram feed or it's a longer about page on our website. This is so well trafficked. The about page being statistically the second most viewed page on a company website. Reason being, we are curious humans. We want to know who you are and what you have to offer. And we can't waste this opportunity to speak to our customers about what they need to answer their problems when they get there, not to tell them how great we are. It's about standing beside them and saying, hey, I get you. I'm going to solve this for you. The elevator pitch, the longer version of that, but we can translate this into all sorts of places, and they can act as fantastic jump-off points for our social media as well, just like the key messages that we wrote in course number 1. Then defining our brand voice. So let's articulate it deeply and specifically. Who are we, and how do we know exactly how we're going to show up on TikTok versus LinkedIn? Or in our interactions with real customers versus in the online space. If we know ourselves well, our values, our purpose, our reasons for doing what we do, then we can really show up authentically and win hearts and minds like crazy. So we're building on this theme of connection. It is just integral. Whether you're looking in the post-COVID era or the current chaos that continues to be our uncertain business environment of so much competition, so few barriers to entry, and just this constant pivoting and uncertainty that we often find ourselves in modern business 101. The thing that lasts and that constantly survives is the connection that we seek amongst our peers, our friends, our colleagues, and the people and brands we do business with. So how do we do that? Well, let's go back to that statement we introduced in course number 1. The old, hey, so what do you do? And really remember what we're saying here when we land on someone's website is exactly that. We may not be having a face-to-face handshake, asking someone about their business, but we're landing on their webpage, or we were led there through our internet travels. And what we're saying is, what is this company about? What do they do? Okay, but what we're really saying is what's in it for me. I'm listening, but I'm wondering how I can translate this into my own lived experience or needs or expectations. And more so, especially if I'm on your website and I'm looking for a solution, or I'm curious about what you have to offer, I'm wondering how it benefits me and my selfish, small goldfish brain needs. Remember that our attention spans today are shorter than that of a goldfish, apparently. 6 seconds versus their 8. So we have to compel people immediately. This is what I'm getting at. Sales 101 says that we need to stand shoulder to shoulder with them. We need to show and make it clear that we know them and we understand them. Remember those pain points, desires, needs, wants that we discussed in social media strategy. And then we have to position ourselves as the one and only, hopefully, solution to their problems, whether that's a perceived problem or something very real and acute. And if we do this well, then we are absolutely aware of and conveying what we like to call our unique value proposition. That unique thing we do, whether it's a product or a service or otherwise, that we do really well and hopefully better than anyone else. So we have to remember that if we're talking to everyone, hello world, with my vague generalized statements, come and eat at my food for everyone restaurant, we're sort of talking to no one. Because you and I don't go on the internet or walk into a clothing store or go to a brand new dog trainer, if that dog trainer is saying that they train everything and everyone, or that restaurant serves everything and everyone, we want to know that it's for us, especially in this era of hyper-segmented, hyper-personalized, and targeted content, but also products and services. That comes down to just the vast array of choice at our fingertips. 20 years ago, you didn't have the choice or the ability to so easily find 52 dog trainers in your municipality. You probably heard of one or found one in the phone book or knew of one down the street because you saw their bricks and mortar store. Well, now we have so much choice, and it takes no more than a Google search or an Instagram social search to find options. So we've got to get more niche and more specific and not worry about the fact that we're not speaking to the masses anymore. We are not billboard marketing here. We are drip marketing into just the right news feeds, inboxes, and eyeballs, hearts and minds, we'll say, of the people who want what we have to offer. So identifying that unique value proposition, let's go into this a little bit deeper this week or this course. That secret sauce that we have to understand and then convey. And the idea here is, what do we do, promise, or provide that people love us for? That's the easiest way to determine what your more unique proposition is. And it's not just that product or service anymore. Oh, I'm a dentist. Well, what do people really love you for? And why should I care to work with you? Or why should I care that you do what you do? So we have to ask ourselves, if we were to choose one or two or three standout things that our business or ourselves, if we're sole proprietors, that we do really well. Is it a thing like a skill, customer service, speed of delivery, a return policy, friendliness on the phone, timeliness, whatever that looks like? And maybe if we're getting down to that emotional spectrum, where if you remember from course number 1, we're really connecting with people on an emotional level, and that's that much more memorable, that much more actionable. So our people, well, that's a start. But what if it was a feeling? Now we're getting a little woo, but that's good. We need to find those emotional, remember, iceberg emotions below the surface. Is it elation, gratitude, relief? Thank God, I was just looking for this, or I can't find someone who truly gets me or could do that for me or is available on the phone to talk to me. And maybe we can get into that sense of belonging we spoke about in the ABCs of content. Remember our A words. Winning content is authoritative. It's accessible. It is building advocacy in your people. And what's the other one? Authority, accessibility, advocacy, authentic. It's very authentic to who you are. You've pulled back the curtains and let people in this modern day, which is what we require as consumers. So the B, of course, of our ABCs is belonging. It is a standalone word to say, hey, if you have a brand or a company that people feel like they're a part of, like they literally have a stake in it, because and I'm not talking financial or ownership, I'm talking like they like it so much that they're going to sing its praises. They go beyond loyalty and into love. I love that company because of who they are. Probably not because their soap is so much better than the other guy. It's less about a connection to the product or service than it is about the company or the brand itself and the people behind it. So a sense of belonging is so important. And then, of course, the C's is content. And we're talking about that every which way all throughout. So which brands are nailing it? Well, further to what we were just saying, it's those that have wholeheartedly realized that the emotional connection that we feel as consumers to that product or service goes deeper than the connection to the actual product or service itself. I can find a lot of dog trainers. I can find a lot of waterproof running shoes. I can find a lot of great eco-friendly toothbrushes, supposedly. But I can't necessarily emotionally connect or feel a sense of belonging or affinity for every one of those companies, except a few who've let me in. So we can join the organization in a sense. We can see into the company and the people behind it like never before, and we care. We can't help it. That's not just the woke among us. That's modern, progressive human beings who have visibility into operations and the world around us, and we care about causes and value systems and people never before. Because again, we have so much more visibility and choice than we ever did. So what are your sticky bits? These are those things that really help you, nail your unique value proposition, But more to the point, they're the things that people don't forget about you. As much as I want to lament the fact that 5 years after teaching someone at social school, they'll come in and they'll be like, oh, that one worksheet exercise we did was so good. I wrote my bio better, or I came up with my content plan for the year in one page. And we're like, we worked together for 3 weeks straight, but that's great. You remember that one worksheet. But it doesn't matter. If that's our sticky bit, our worksheets or our templates or tools, awesome. Let's build on those. Let's create more delight and relief and success for people by getting them to the finish line. That alone, that learning about one of our sticky bits, being those one-pagers and those tools we provide to students, has taught us so much about how we need to not just educate and inspire, but activate. You hear me say it all the time. Let's execute on that. Let's get you to the finish line, not just inspired, but done. And so it can teach us a lot if we're listening to what people hear or what they're saying is our most memorable sticky trait, content piece, deliverable, whatever. So this really does take us deep into the emotional connection side of this, believe it or not. It's that trust and loyalty and humanity and transparency that we're seeking as consumers or followers. And it relates to how we feel when a brand delivers what it is we need. When we think about these words and the emotional connection that we feel as individuals to things like a religious group, a cultural group, a sporting team, or a university, perhaps, our alma mater that we really, really feel a sense of belonging for or affinity with. Maybe it's a hobby or a line of work that is ours and ours alone, or it's unique from other people. Maybe it's a fashion or music or, again, cultural reality or niche that we really belong to. It could be a movement. It could be a demographic or a certain group of people, a change-making group, or just something that, people stand up for. But we can also see these same types of things happen with a brand. And if you look to case studies of brands who have done this so well, where they have led people in, their product or service, like Harley Davidson, doesn't even have to be the best there is. From what I'm told, that Harley bikes are not even the best you can buy in the world, but they are absolutely Harley Davidson through and through. Even their peripheral products. There's famous case studies about people bringing things to Harley that they want to add to the Harley lineup of bike cleaners, for example. And this one case study says that there was this beautiful oil-repelling, dirt-repelling bike wash thing that could be applied to the bike of the Harley. And Harley said, no, that doesn't fit with our brand, because one of the many things that our people, our tribe, if I can use that word, although we shouldn't anymore, but our cultural iconic group of people that know their Harley and they belong there, they love washing their bikes. That's something they do. They gather together and they find, connection and belonging in that sort of ritual. So how do we know ourselves so well, and how do we know ourselves as brands, but as individuals? I just feel like no matter what, when I grow up or when I'm able, I'm going to be a Harley rider. I belong here. I love it. Likewise, Red Bull, you'll often hear me say they're never can in hand. Very rarely. They are putting on events and activations, and they're having influencer relationships and partnerships with the people that live and breathe and represent their brand. And then in turn, they magnetize more of those people right to them. They don't have to spell it out for us that they're an energy drink. They just are that. And so all of those words we use to describe those really, deep-seated cultural, religious belief systems that we've got, we can also have those for brands, and the brands can create that for us if they do it well. And again, they're open and really aware of who they are. Camp Brand Goods, this is Connor and Leslie out of Inglewood in Calgary. They know themselves so well. And if you're a camp fan, you can't wait to get your hands on their latest t-shirt line or whatever campaign they're running. And they speak to their values and their purpose deeply. We know who they are. They don't claim to be perfect, but they certainly read the room. They know their audience, and they know how to speak to them and serve them to the best of their ability all the time. So when we feel these things for brands, we feel like we belong. And then in turn, we love and we trust and embrace and advocate and refer and endorse, and we stick around. We come back for more. We open those e-newsletters. We wait for those sales. We can't wait to meet the people. We read the blog posts. We want more. We're not constantly shopping around and hopping to the next shiny ball that presents itself to us. So building relationships, building brand love, and building belonging and a sense of affinity, if that's relevant to you, hopefully it is in some way, shape, or form in your own business, is so, so important, and it's possible. We're seeing this on the simplest level on social media. We've seen feeds of, well-established brands and businesses that have decent budgets for graphic designers and the best-in-class writers and publishers, etc. We've seen them go more towards connection over that perfect feed aesthetic of the beautifully curated art gallery feed with no text over top and this really gorgeous, variation of content, etc. And we're seeing more of the live videos, the memes, pop culture references, Q&As, or stickers posted right on top. So we're using, especially in Instagram, we're using the features and the tools that the platform has made available to us, like polls and stickers and reels and captions, etc. But we're also reading the room and knowing that this is what gets the most engagement. And that being this perfectly polished brand, even on social media or a place like Instagram, is maybe something of the past. It might not be for you. You might not want to go real and raw. You might still love that feed aesthetic and then rely on your stories or your TikTok feed to be a little bit more unpolished. Totally up to you. But I do encourage you to find some of your favorite brands. I've used two marketers here, Jasmine Starr and Elise Dharma, who I really like. And I've watched their feeds change over time. And these two ladies both happen to talk a lot about Instagram marketing and this exact thing. On a website, we're going to talk a lot about this in this course as we build out better bio statements and calls to action and headlines and taglines. But a landing page that's about me and my needs as your browser or visitor and not you and yours. I don't want to know about your stock value and your earnings reports and how great you are as a team in the community. Like, okay, but maybe keep that for your investor relations page or your corporate report or your annual statements. When I land on your website, I want to know why I should care or how I can get behind you and support you and buy from you. So it speaks my language, it knows my pain points, and it's going to give me some sense of an emotional reaction, hopefully. And if that sounds lofty, don't overthink it. Let me show you some simpler ideas as we go. But taglines and headlines and captions that use the words you and your cannot be underestimated. I love this example from Wix. Wix, of course, is a DIY website builder, kind of like Shopify or Squarespace. And what I love about that line, create a website you're proud of, is the pain point it's speaking to. And I know this because we work with a lot of small businesses and candidates for a DIY website tool like Wix that say, first and foremost, I'm so ashamed of my website. It's so embarrassing. Please don't go look at it. Or I really need to update it. It's stuck in 1995, but I don't have the keys or whatever. But they know that almost website shame is at the top of the list of pain points and motivations to move forward with something else. So understanding our audience's needs there is so imperative, because then look what they come back with. Not, hey, I understand your website sucks, but create a website you're proud of, using the words you and your. Not necessarily world's greatest website DIY platform. It's like, no. We're talking with an emotional lead. And then we're building a little bit more authority below it. Discover the platform that gives you the freedom to create, design, manage, and develop your web presence exactly the way you want. So a little bit of authority to back up that really almost triggering but direct statement about the pain point. And then add in some or layer in whatever you need to on top of that. But ideally not too much. One headline, one tagline, one call to action. And if this is me and I'm the candidate, I'm in. Get started. Amen. Let me hit that blue button. If it's not for me, I'm going to bounce. But at least they've made that clear early on. And as a visitor, I'm not confused by what they offer. I know right away that it's a platform that's going to allow me to create a website I'm proud of, and I can start right now. And then I can dive into case studies and all the different things too, which I will. But initially, they've got me hooked and they're leading me down the garden path. So not only is that UX, user experience, clean, compelling, simple, clear, but it's also UI, the user interface. Dead simple to navigate, to understand, and to know what my next step is. Website 101. What about BarkBox? Speaking of lighthearted, give your dog exactly what they want. Now, if you are, a dog lover to the degree that you are buying them a box subscription of toys every month, great, you're in the right place. Probably you've been targeted with social media content or paid ads or referred here. Generally, you're probably not typing in barkbox.com, but you're led here if this is something that you'd be interested in. You've been identified as a dog lover. Whatever it is. So, when you get here, that tagline or that headline and that tagline, and then that call to action should do exactly what it's intended to do. And then what's really neat about this website is it has some gamification on the very next step where I enter my dog's name, Ruby. That's not too invasive. I'll tell you my dog's name. How big is Ruby? 45 to 55 pounds. And what is she like? Balls or bones? Balls. Great. I'm now segmented again. And they've got my email address because I want to see what Ruby's box might look like, or what's Ruby's horoscope. All these really unique lead generation tools that any of us can create that have just helped us segment down our prospect or customer into knowing exactly how to reach them with tailored, relatable, actionable content in our very next step. So this is where we get into customer journey and email marketing and other things, but it starts with a quality landing page or homepage. And so many of us are overdoing it. We're just puking information at people. We're speaking our language, not theirs. And it's an overwhelming experience that they do nothing with but leave. They might scroll for a minute or two. They might really kind of peruse into your homepage and all it's got to offer, but then they don't know what else to do, or they've seen enough and heard enough that they're not looking for more and they're out. And so many of us do this in not all the right ways. Nike. I love this line, come out and play. I visit Nike's site often because to me, they are such an incredible example of a brand that is obviously listening to their customers. They're seasonally washing their social feeds and rebranding everything in whatever their campaign of the moment is. And they're so clean and concise, and it's like the white space and the messaging. It's like Apple, similar experience where the user experience is just so pleasant and not overwhelming. And remember, we're overwhelmed a lot. That's why this is so important today, is just to keep it as simple as we can and, reach our goal. And as they say, brevity is hard and simplicity is hard. So it's a challenge for us to get here. But back to this campaign, or this screenshot was actually taken in spring 2020. I think it was round 2, we'll call it second wave of COVID coming to an end, and we were all desperately, foolishly thinking it was the end and we were going to come out and play. But we were ready because, we'd made it through winter enough, some of the vaccinations were around. I just remember that time as thinking in fact, there was that very famous chewing gum ad that came out where everybody was running around outside kissing each other and they looked all disheveled. And it was that same time frame where Nike didn't just say, you should come out and play, or it's time for you to put your runners on and come out and play. They shortened it even tighter and just said that. We knew this had a deeper message about, emerging from COVID and starting fresh and all of that. So you get the point. Really brilliant copywriters reading and understanding their audience and what their needs are at the right time, and then bringing it to life without a lot of red tape or hesitation. Being nimble enough to know that you're able to, navigate the changing expectations of your users and your audience, but also of the economy, the world, culture, etc. So planned and strategic, but also nimble and adaptable. If we know our brand purpose and we're perpetually repeating or, existing around it, our values and purpose as a company, content gets really easy to create. And I mean, easy is a loaded word, but smooth. We don't have to question whether we would say that or not. We just know if we would or if we wouldn't and what we stand for. In turn, we attract our people easily. We're like magnets to people, not because we sell great sourdough, but because we are, women owned or entrepreneurial spirited or female minded or whatever our causes, our purpose, our brand value statements are, that people are like, yep, I'm in. I want more of that. And I want that sourdough, not that one. And then of course that sense of belonging happens where they can't wait to tell others. So the first exercises of this course you're going to find in your workbook. And number one, we're going to look at our unique value proposition. We talked a little bit about this in social media strategy, but this time you're going deeper. In that course, we talked about some pain points and, needs and desires and the iceberg emotions that live below the surface. But let's get more specific now. What is your offer? If you had to define it in one sentence, what is the singular problem that you were trying to solve? And for who? And then on that note, if we're thinking about not just surface level solving problems, I change tires, I install windshields, I clean teeth, we are emotionally connecting and we're ideally trying to leave them with a certain feeling. Is it relief? Is it joy? Is it gratitude? Who knows? What are some of those emotions that you're trying to create? And then what is it specifically that your prospect or customer wants to gain? Can you sum that up in one sentence? So go beyond just those individual words. What do they want to feel? What is it that is going to make them come back for more if they really truly have an emotional change or they've been transformed somehow in working with you? And then what objections might they have? It's really important for us to know what those objections are that'll keep them from buying or keep them from coming back for more or even keep them from clicking or subscribing or engaging with your content. Really important, because then we can answer those objections and pain points, remember, in our sales copy or in some of our landing page statements, etc. Exercise 2 is your 10-second test. So within 10 seconds, I'm going to give you extra, not just 6, but 10 of being on your website or your blog or your social feed. Maybe I just land on your Instagram channel or page. What does your visitor know? What do I figure out quickly, hopefully? What do I sell, make, do, or offer? In their words, what would they say? What's in it for them? How would you define this or how would I define this if I was on your website? Who I or we are. So your visitor would describe you or your company as what? And then who you really are. So yeah, you make dog bones, but who are you really? Oh, well, you're giving opportunity to people that don't otherwise have, whatever it is. Or you're a group of, recovering somethings who want to give back to society through this. And then what to do next. Where do I go from here, and is it clear on whatever page or platform I'm looking at right now? How do I move forward from here? Remember, I'm a dummy. I don't read your mind. I don't know what path you've laid out for me to hopefully take next, and I'm not going to just land at checkout. You got to get me there. So is it clear how I go from point A to point B or point A to point W? Whatever those steps are along the way. We have a customer journey course in our 360 series that goes deep into this. The journey from start to finish of cold lead to hot buyer and all the places digitally and physically along the way that we need to show up, or we hopefully do, no matter how short or long the journey. So I encourage you to push pause now and work through those and come back when you're ready. We're going to keep building on these 2 exercises. All right, so in the sense of attempting to create killer content, if we can call it that, but this world-class standout content that you're really proud of because you know it's moving the needle for you in your business, we want to craft it in a way that speaks directly to people and compels them into action. Those are the most important things for us to do. We're not talking about those vanity surface level likes and follows and even comments anymore. We want people to actually take action, share, click, subscribe, buy, phone us, like pick up the phone or fill out a contact form, but move forward in a way that they can't wait to work with us is amazing. So if we've talked about connection, we're going to now look at creativity. So some of the ways that we can do this, let's look at a few examples. We could talk about WestJet all day long, and not because they're necessarily blowing our minds every time we open their e-newsletter or see their social campaigns or even their now Christmas campaigns, which if you go back 5 or 6 years, they were like leading the pack in some of the surprise and delight campaigns they would release at Christmas and then post to YouTube or post all over social or whatever. Just gifting and Santa in the airport and flights to Dominican Republic to build schools and all sorts of amazing stuff. But at the base of it all just lies really authentic people. If I think back to social media 1.0, like Twitter 2010, I remember that WestJet was the first company I ever saw that was initialing every one of their posts. So if it was the customer service agent, replying to someone asking if their flight was on time, you'd always see that agent's initials. They were adding some personal connection to it and personality to each of those. Just a human that's involved, not a bot or not some generic person who's managing this account from afar. We can see it in their profiles, in their content types, taking us in and getting us to feel familiar with the owners, the agents, the pilots, the mechanics, etc. And they've always had that campaign of WestJet, we're owners, so that it feels like, they're one of us and that we're all in it together. Beyond that, we often use WestJet as an example of that seamless customer journey, or a pretty decent one, and just how many touch points they have along the way. And they have these opportunities for experience makers and experience breakers. Like, I can seamlessly open my email from WestJet and see that they're having their spring sale, and I can book online and my points are right there and my flight credits applied, and then I get the right amount of follow-ups or reminders, and I get it to my phone, and I download my pass to my phone, and my check-in is easy, and now I'm on the flight and my Wi-Fi doesn't work. The experience break. And it's not their fault necessarily. This is life. It's how it happens. But we all have these makers and breakers along the way. Again, digitally and physically, and some of us more than others. But the idea is that if we can really orchestrate this beautiful experience from start to finish, almost like a subscription business. We like to say we're all subscription businesses today because, people are subscribing to your e-newsletter. They're following you on social. They want to come back for more. You can't just deliver once and walk away. We want to be able to deliver start to finish in one transaction or one experience, but also in continuous experiences. So WestJet does it well for a number of ways, and not to pick on their in-flight Wi-Fi, but just to illustrate the point that things will go awry, or we might lose the customer at the final stage when they find the other guy's website a little easier. We just have to identify those and work towards constantly improving them or showing up a little better. On a slightly simpler note, Sam Correa, a friend of mine and real estate agent in my city of Calgary, just does a fantastic job of connecting with his people in a way that's so real. And I often say, gosh, if we had a dime for every time a real estate agent posted their latest listing on Twitter and called it a great post, how do we go above and beyond? Well, Sam and his wife, Jacqueline, and their team have created some of the most compelling, fun, personality and trust building content that I've seen, not just in real estate, but you get to know them and you like them and thus you trust them. You want to work together. Beyond that, the frequency and consistency of it keeps them top of mind so that if and when I ever finally need a realtor, or if I know someone who does, it's an easy referral for me, or really easy to share the latest reel that they did with some kind of insight on mortgage rates. And then when the time comes, we're ready to roll and we know exactly where to find them. I encourage you to check out and identify some feeds or brands or individuals in your industry that are doing things differently or a bit better than the rest, because as we all know, we can each try and find that creativity in our own businesses probably a little better than we are. On that same vein, having a distinct brand voice and tone can be really helpful. This doesn't mean it has to be way out there, but if we look to something like LaCroix water, right? It's literally fizzy water. But we know that they have a very distinct brand, those colors, the imagery in their feed, the people and the things they talk about, they stick to it, but they still find a way to be creative and cheeky and fun and relevant. And maybe their emotional goal is just to make us feel a sense of relief or joy in this crazy world we're living in. And that their posts do that, or it's a reminder to go take a break and have a lime spritzer. But I really like their voice and their consistency. Similarly, different type of voice is Gary Vee. If you know Gary Vaynerchuk, very prolific and well-known, that's the same thing, marketer from New York. He's quite brash, but I've always loved him because I feel like he's very on point. He's very good at talking about what's happening in the digital marketing industry, but he doesn't pull any punches, and he doesn't care to. He doesn't like it when people tell him to swear less. And he's like, I have forfeited or, not been able to take advantage of many different speaking opportunities because I won't not swear from the stage. That's how I feel. And he magnetizes a ton of people to him for how direct and succinct and, on point he is when it comes to digital marketing trends. So content that connects can take all forms and shapes, but what is it that you can do really well? Bar Body Studio uses their website, their blog, their e-newsletter to do all of these things and to put their members and their staff, so their instructors, their suppliers, their partners, as constant, forefront members or faces of their brand, which is super cool. We all love to see spotlights and stories or case studies about real people doing real things, not just the corporate message about, the membership pricing and the latest schedule. The owner, Marlo, does this as well too. She shows up in a way that's really authentic and she's right there in it. And she's not afraid to show herself as shoulder to shoulder, one of you. I want these things just like you. I built this for you. We run this and built this for you. So it becomes this bigger picture, and everyone who is a member or even just a client or a visitor starts to feel like they're a member. They are part of this organization, and thus they're probably more inclined to continue going to that fitness studio versus the millions of others that they could choose from. Perhaps most importantly, my favorite word, and this is the former journalist in me, but also word nerd and someone who is very apt to lose people when I wax on, as I'm doing right now, and I see them glaze over and lose interest, like my dad or my brother or now my husband. And that's not necessarily male, female, but in a lot of cases it is. I speak differently to my female friends and family members than I do to my male ones because I've learned over time that I need to get to the point, or that I need to start with the end and work backwards and fill in the details that they want. Versus when I'm telling a story to my mom and she back at me, my God, the intro is like 10 pages long. But anyway, if we start to notice these things, and most importantly, notice them about our audience and just how much clarity or simplicity and lack of jargon and cliches and industry mumbo jumbo that they're interested in, we can do so much better with our communications. So when asked that question, so what do you do? Or just kind of hypothetically or a roundabout way by someone landing on your website, the need to be crystal clear about who we are and what we offer cannot be understated. We know the one of my favorite lines, as a contractor who was renovating our house a few years ago said to me, Kelly, if you confuse people, you lose people. And then my husband said, yeah, and you should learn the difference between a beam and a column. Fair. But we get the point. If we can make someone understand and want to know more in 1 to 2 sentences or 10 seconds, we are winning. This is what I like to call the grandma test. Not to dumb it down and say that it's got to be written for a 5-year-old, or it's got to be at grade 6 level, or it's got to be legible for your grandmother. But this literally happened to me years ago. I was shifting from selling a service to people I knew, content marketing, public relations, acting as the practitioner, to a product online for strangers, something I could scale, something I could build once and sell often, hence online courses and training and tools. But when I was trying to describe that to people, I got so in the weeds. I was selling it in all the wrong ways with too much of and then you're empowered to take it into your own hands, and what you're going to have is and I got so tactical and technical. And it wasn't until I went to my grandma's cabin in BC and I escaped from my family and young children for a few days to finish my online course for the first time and to get it published because it was starting on Monday. And she came by one day and she said, so Kelly, what do you do? And I said, Grandma, I help people get media coverage. That was when my very first one was called PR Pioneers, and it was about DIY media relations. And she lit up and she said, "Oh, how do you do that?" And it was the perfect segue. And that right there is get, give, get, where I get information, or I know my grandma and I know what she needs. And then when she gives me the opener of what do you do, I give her a little bit and then I get the sale. So get, give, get, versus give all sorts of info, puke out a bunch of words, get a little bit more, and then give them even more. And this is like you're walking in a trade show, and that's what happens when the guy with, selling the squeegees is yelling at you through the microphone as you walk by about how great it is. No, that doesn't work. We know this. You know as well as I do that if someone phones you unsolicited on your cell phone to sell you some kind of lame credit card insurance or mattress, you're like, "Where'd you get my number? You didn't nurture me. You didn't ask my permission, and now I'm being kind of sold to without any kind of whatever request." So we are hypersensitive to this today, and we need to recognize that we can really connect with people well with more or with less. So let's do this. The about. We're solidifying who we are, what we offer, and why we do it with what we like to call the very simple 6-word formula. You start with the word I or we, some form of the word help. So it could be anything: teach, transform, build, define, assist, whatever. Who it is you help. Divorcees, single dads, hikers, mountain bikers, dental professionals. Achieve what? Some kind of transformation, remember. That end result that we all want to be made clear is ours for the taking. So if we look at a few examples here, Jonathan Fields, he spoke as a keynote speaker at our event called The Post, our digital marketing conference way back several years ago in Calgary. And he's incredible. He's got millions of subscribers to his podcast. He's written dozens of New York Times bestselling authors. He has thousands, hundreds of thousands of followers and subscribers and fans. He interviews the best of the best and vice versa in New York. But instead of saying best-selling author, world-class international speaker and over 1 million books sold, he says, as his tagline, "I help people live a good life." His company is called The Good Life Project. But live a good life? Tell me more. Or how? I'm interested. And maybe he's going to shift that slightly, whether he's introducing himself on a stage or in real life or on his website. Maybe on his website, he's going to shift to say, "Live your best life," or "Ready to start living a good life," whatever that looks like, but using words like you and your and adjusting the intro however needed. This gal, Dr. Shefali Sabari, we build better families. She and her team run a family counseling unit. And so instead of saying, family counseling, trauma, divorce, whatever, they're talking about building better families and leaving us with curiosity. Finally, Nicholas Kuzmich. This fellow and his company have built lead generation and sales software for marketing companies or any kind of company for years. So online tech software based. And instead of saying that, he says, we introduce people to their customers. And then right under that, it could be a line about, best-selling, most downloaded, highly trusted software, tools, apps, programs for sales professionals. But ideally, that pitch is just enough to make us clear and compelled. The elevator pitch, of course, is a little bit longer. This is, if you had 30 seconds to ride an elevator, what would you say? This is where this term comes from, or 20 seconds is even better. And now we're getting a little bit longer, but these can translate beautifully into our about statements on our website or that Facebook business page or anywhere else you need to flesh it out a little bit. So an example that's super simple, a few sentences here, literally 3 sentences that start with the hook, that intro statement. I or we believe what matters most is this. So you're standing shoulder to shoulder. Oh, I believe that same thing. Who knew? And then what are your values? Well, we started this because of this and here's why. And then finally, a little bit about the benefits of the product or the service. This is sales page 101. If you were to Google that, sales page layout, copy, or sales strategy, you're going to see the way people have started to build their sales pages, whether that's for a digital product, mortgage counseling, any kind of, online sale with that pain point, the objection or the understanding of that pain point a little deeper, and then an introduction of the solution. Then maybe a bit about who delivers it. Then maybe some testimonials and proof points. Then maybe, it goes into this whole formula that you can take it or shorten it extensively, depending on how big your service or product is. If you're just selling a t-shirt, you probably don't need much. If you're selling a $3,000 coaching program, you got to layer in all those trust building pieces. But the elevator pitch tightens that up and delivers exactly that sales strategy in a few sentences and lead us, again, wanting more. So we need to stop making it about us and about the people that we are serving and the problems that we're solving. The life-changing benefits, the transformation, the end result, convey that. How am I going to feel or think or act or be relieved of my problems if I choose you? Some of the best people as examples for this are the world-class life coaches or transformational experts that we know. And I can't totally pinpoint why. I think it's because they're not afraid to go a little more emotional than, say, Nike, but they are also working with the best copywriters and UX designers and, psychological marketers in the world. So look no further than the one and only Tony Robbins, very famous transformational expert. And those three words are profound, truly. Either I want to transform my life because I'm having some kind of problem, or I don't, and I'm out. But if I do want to transform my life, and it's saying that to me so massively clear and such bold letters with no other decoration or confusion, I'm probably going to keep reading. So decades of experience, millions of lives change, undeniable results. That's pretty self-serving, but at the same time, it's still actually probably very strategically written to quell my fears or maybe some of my skepticism as I go, and then start here. Next example, Gabby Bernstein. She's a very well-known author. She's, a lifestyle meditation, mental wellness expert or so-called guru. And instead of talking about that, and again, her many books written and conference fans and followers, she says, become the happiest person you know. And this line, again, it's kind of like, Wix. What's the pain point of most of her consumers? Well, it's probably finding joy, or they're feeling exhausted or isolated or whatever it is. And those words can be summed up in a transformation that is to find happiness. And that's what works on a lot of her people. And of course, then I can dive further into the things right below that big headline statement, which is what we call above the fold. I don't even need to scroll this website to know that it's for me and to get all that I need to keep going through by clicking that Start Now button. A company that we worked with in Calgary called Curo Chiropractic liked this line so much that they chose to change their homepage away from Calgary's all-in-one health and wellness clinic serving the greater Alberta area and with chiropractic, massage, and acupuncture. Instead, become the healthiest person you know. And then I also love that they, instead of calling their clients, they call them members. And they have all these additional member perks. And then side note, the brilliance of these two owners and their team was that instead of just selling one-off chiropractic assessments and services, they sell a package to their members. So with your package, you do get all the added benefits of the different aspects of the clinic and the gym and the different pieces that they've beautifully built. But you call yourself a member. And more than that, they paint a picture for you of the finish line. So I'll give you an example. I went there and this is how we started working together, but I went there frustrated with my old lady tech neck. I knew I just needed relief, and I was mad at myself for being such a sloth and not taking care of myself and letting myself get this bad to the point where you're like paralyzed and angry and you've got migraine headaches, all the things. So I won't say anything more about my neck. But I went there for that first assessment. I'm still mad. I'm still annoyed. These are my objections. I don't trust this process. And plus I'm just, again, pissed at myself. Mad at myself. Then I get this picture painted for me of what the problem is. I get these added benefits of x-rays and ideas of what's going on and what could be made better and all these things. And then I get this picture of a 12-week treatment plan. And before I know it, I'm dropping $780 on, like, I can't remember how many appointments it was. Let's call it 15, instead of just coming one at a time and never going back. And they did such a beautiful job of making me feel like this is how I would feel at the end and I'd be better. And of course, that's what I'm going to sign on for instead of a one-off generic vanilla appointment that didn't show me any kind of transformation. So just a side note there on a subscription-based service, holy smokes, it really made me rethink about how anyone, a hairstylist, a Botox injector, a dentist, anyone who's hoping to see people on a regular basis could paint a journey of success or what the path to X goal looks like, and probably garner a lot more business and repeat customers as a result, instead of us just falling off and saying we'll come back for another massage, but never coming back ever. Okay, so let's write our bio. This is really important. I hope you don't skip this stage. A proper intro can absolutely be your best asset. Now is the time to nail it. And then from there, how do we create further interest and intrigue? This elevator pitch that is a little bit longer that can also, remember, act as jump off points for other pieces of content for us. And then the 4 to 8 word headline. So within 10 seconds of landing on your blog or site or social feed, is it clear what you do? Sorry, that should say the 10-second test. Nope, it shouldn't. I'm lying. Whew. Okay, we'll come back to the 10-second test. That's coming next. But for now, a few tight and bright and bold statements to place at the top of your homepage or other pages on your site. They can obviously differ depending on what page it is, that really speak to your customer or prospect needs and not you. How can you maybe learn from what we've seen so far and build on those? If you need a break to do that, please do. And then come on back. We're going to talk about building and defining your brand voice. This is the last step here in module number 1, I promise. So what are we talking about? Defining, refining, and then tailoring that one key customer, ideally the one we built in course number 1, social media strategy, where we looked closely at their pain points and their needs and desires and wants and fears and frustrations. And then we're tailoring our content even more to them and to our various platforms. So how do we find that brand voice? This is not easy for some people and others know it inside and out, but here's a few ways to help us get there. First things, we're going to define it. So we're going to try and find 3 words that capture our brand's personality and then limit those with but not. It just narrows it down in the simplest way possible. So we're resourceful, but we're not boring. We're fun, but we're not immature or unprofessional. Things like that. You have a spot for that in your workbook in a second here. Differentiate. So what's the tone of the competition or of your industry currently or in past or down the road? And then whether or not you want to define yourself differently and stand out or kind of slide in and replicate that because it's necessary. How can you hopefully differentiate a little bit? Most importantly, listening. How and when and where do your customers communicate? Where do you know them to be showing up? And we talked a lot about this in the first course, about the platforms you should be on and the biggest opportunities for you and your business because of where your audience is and where they're going. That's where we need to show up. And then when they get there, how are they speaking? What's the sentiment? How could you seamlessly enter the conversation or gauge that sentiment with some social listening and meet it where it's at, or turn the tide, or show up as a solution. So using language, tone, that should say, timing, and places that appeal to our audience. And then inspire. How can we be bold and bring in that creativity side a little bit that allows us to stand out? This doesn't mean you need to be some creative genius or hire some sort of agency to help you find it. But if we speak directly to our audience, maybe we use short phrases or action words, and we actually are a little bit more in the moment, or less third-person point of view and more direct. Again, the you and the your, and I'm having a conversation with one person, not the entire world. And then engage. How can we stop trying so hard and allow our voice to relax and kick off its shoes, be a little bit more real, knowing that it's fluid. It's not fixed. It needs to flow and evolve along with our audience and along with the times. And we know those are changing all the time. So you don't constantly have to be like switching platforms and switching tone, but you've got to be able to step into what's happening. As they say, the best way to make news is to know the news. And the best way to connect with people is to understand where they're at and what they need from you. So define your tone. To further refine this brand voice, let's use one of these pairings below. And we did not come up with these. These are universally used in order to help refine what a company is about. So are you funny or serious? Formal versus casual? Respectful versus a little bit more irreverent? And then enthusiastic or really matter of fact? You can think about this even in the way you write emails, and that doesn't have to be defined or, mandated in your company, but similarly, I think we can all relate to some of those things. So that exercise for you is to define your tone of voice for the most authentic audience connection possible. And that's your last workbook exercise for this module 1. And then I will see you in module 2. And I hope you're ready, because we're diving into those tools and templates, and it's a pretty big one that's going to set you up for seamless mind-blowing content creation in the weeks and months ahead. I'll see you there.